So now that we've talked about all of the real numbers, let's go and try to put numbers on the real number line. Here we have a number line here. 0 is in the middle, and then we go up to 1, and then maybe 2 and 3, and all the way up to positive infinity. 0, -1, -2 would be over here, down to negative infinity. Let's try to put these candidate numbers somewhere on this line that we have. So let's start with 0.5, which is named 5/10. A way to think about 5/10 is you could write it out as 5/10. And then that means that all of the sections between 0 and 1 could be put into tenths, into 10 tiny little sections. So we could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. Okay, so do you see that I split 0 to 1 in 10 little even sections, or as even as I can make them? And now there's going to be 5 of these little sections. So this is 1 section, 2 section, 3 section, 4 section, 5 section. Aha. So 0.5 or 5/10 would lay exactly in the middle. And you probably also know that 0.5 could be in a fraction form as 1/2. So 5/10 is 1/2. And you see it's exactly halfway between 0 and 1. So these are ways that you can use to come up with a little bit more difficult decimals. In the future, you can always divide it into tenths or hundredths or whatever you want. And then, although hundredths would be a lot of little lines here. And then you can look at the numerator and then count as many sections as you need to make the distance correct as much as you can. Obviously, we're just, doing the best we can. We don't have a ruler and stuff. Let's move on to the next one. 0.45. Okay, so because I don't want, so 0.45 is 45 hundredths. So I could rewrite that as 45 hundredths. But I don't want to make 100 sections in between 0 and 1. It would get way too messy and I couldn't follow it. But fortunately, I did find out where 0.5 lies on this line. Now, is 0.45 greater or less than 0.5? So we're now comparing two numbers together. So which one is bigger? Well, let me put 0.5 here. We look at this place, and it's even for both of these. Both of these are zeros, so we can't tell which one's bigger yet. So then we go to the next place, which is a decimal place, and we look at 5, and we look at 4. Since 5 is greater than 4, and they're both in the same decimal spot, the tenths place, we can see that 0.5 is a little bit bigger than 0.45. So we can estimate it. And 0.45 would be just to the left. Okay, so we could put 0.45 there, and we know it's somewhere just to the left of 0.5, and that's about as accurate as we need for our purposes right now. Let's go to -3/2. That's a fraction. Sometimes it's easier to actually convert fractions into decimals to put them onto the number line. It's up to you. It's a judgment call, but sometimes it's easier to do it that way. So let's turn -3/2 into a decimal. How do you do that? Well, to turn any fraction into a decimal, divide the denominator into the numerator. So I'll do it over here. 2 into 3. We're going to think about this negative after we do this long division here. So 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract. Now we need to get into decimals. Put a 0 here, drop down to 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And so this is 1.5. So 3/2 is 1.5. So -3/2 is -1.5. Okay? So where would -1.5 be on here? Well, from here to here is -1. And then if we had a guess, here to maybe over here would be -2. Okay? And remember that we already saw that 0.5 is going to be halfway between these two notches on the line, so we'll just extend it here a little bit. And so we know that it's -1 and a half. So -1.5 would be halfway between -1 and -2. So it would lie right here. So -3/2 would be right here. Okay, let's do 9/7. Let's convert 9/7 into an approximate decimal. Let's see what we can do there, and then that'll help us see where on the line. Now, it's positive, so we know that it's going to be to the right of 0. We also know, do you see that the numerator 9 is bigger than the denominator 7? That means that this is an improper fraction. Improper fractions are fractions that are greater than 1. You see that 7 would go into 9, 1, plus some change. So we know that 9/7 should be somewhere to the right of 1. But we also know that 7 doesn't go into 9 twice. 7 goes into 14 twice, but not 9 twice. So we know that if we divide 7 into 9, we'll get 1 point something. So if we extend this line, sometimes you have to extend the line a little bit. So let's say this is 2 right here. So we know that 9/7 lives somewhere above 1, but less than 2. And we can get a little bit more exact by actually figuring out what the long division is. 7 goes into 9 once. Okay, 9 minus 7 is 2. Now we need to go into the decimal land. Okay, 0 drops down. 7 goes into 20, let's see, goes in there twice, because 2 times 7 is 14. I'm going to erase this part just to give us some more room. So 20 minus 14 is 6. So we need another 0. Drop down that 0. 7 goes into 60. This is where knowing your times tables really helps. So I know that 8 times 7 is 56. That's about as close as I can get to 60 without going over. So I'll put in 8. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract it, it's 4. I need yet another 0. 7 goes into 40. Let's see, 7 times 5 is 35. That gets us close to 40, but not over. So there we go. That's 5. Another 0. 7 goes into 50. Well, 7 times 7 is 49. And then 1. And then it goes down more. 7 goes into 10 once. 1 times 7 is 7. 3. Here's another 0. Here, 7 goes into 34 times. 4 times 7 is 28, and I get a 2. Okay, I need more room. So 28, that's a 2. Need to carry down another 0. 7 goes into 20 twice. 2 times 7 is 14. 6. It's starting to repeat. 7 goes into 60, let's see, 6, 7, 8 times. Do you see that it's starting to repeat? 1.28571428. It's probably a safe bet now. 285714, 285714, and it just goes on forever like that in that pattern. Okay? So it's kind of a difficult decimal to come up with, but we came up with it. So where would this lie on this number line between 1 and 2? Well, why don't we just round to make it sort of easier? So let's break this into maybe fourths, okay? Let's break this into fourths between 1 and 2. So if this is fourths, what would this be? This would be 1.25, this would be 1.5, this would be 1.75, and this would be 2. So where does 1.28 or where does 1.29, as we round it off, live? 1.29 lives a little bit to the right of 1.25, but a little bit to the left of 1.5. So we'll say this is close enough. So we're going to say that 9/7 lives right here on the number line. Okay? So it can get involved, but just go step by step, and you should be able to not have difficulty putting any real number in its place on the real number line.